Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock by my watch. So my name is Gemma Callow. I am the Communications Manager for Brumbreeze. I am joined this morning by my colleague Peter Edwards, who's the Principal Clean Air Zone Officer leading on temporary exemption permits. What we're going to do this morning is just talk you through how the Clean Air Zone will operate when it goes live on the 1st of June this year, and then talk through some of the exemptions and support that's available that you may be eligible for. Both Peter and I are working from home this morning, so apologies if you hear any background noise involving children or pets. We've done our best to keep that noise to a minimum. This event is being recorded, and we can circulate a link to the recording afterwards for you to share with any colleagues who are unable to join us this morning. We will run through the presentation, which takes typically about 20 minutes. If you have any questions during the course of that presentation, please pop them in the chat box, the Q&A box on the right-hand side. And what we'll do once we finish the presentation, we will then go through and answer your questions at the end. So hopefully with all that in mind, we'll get the presentation underway. I'll give it one more minute just for any late attendees. I can still see the numbers are creeping up in the corner there. So I'll just set myself up and then we'll get ready and start through the presentation. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that presentation on screen. So Birmingham's Clean Air Zone, it's coming into effect on the 1st of June this year, and it's being introduced because poor air quality has been declared a national health emergency. Every year, between 28 and 36,000 people across the UK are dying from conditions which are exacerbated by air pollution, including heart disease, lung disease and cancer. I won't run through all the figures on screen, you can see them there for yourselves, but what I will point out is that air pollution does have an adverse effect, particularly on children. Because children are closer to the ground, closer to those concentrated exhaust fumes, they inhale 3 times as much air pollution than we do as adults, which has an impact on their growth and development and means they're 4 times more likely to have reduced lung function when they become adults. So prior to COVID, we undertook some research into travel behaviours in Birmingham city centre, and what we ascertained was that 50% of all journeys into Birmingham were undertaken by private car. So what the Clean Air Zone is looking to do in the first instance is to deter high polluting vehicles from driving into the city centre. But also what that research did show us is that 250,000 journeys every single day were for less than 1 mile. So we're talking about a 20-minute walk, a 10-minute cycle ride, the use of a bus or tram, etc. So in the second instance, what the Clean Air Zone is looking to do is to deter people from taking those very short journeys by car and encouraging them to take more active or sustainable forms of transport where they can. So Clean Air Zones are government mandated and they are being introduced to cities across the UK. Bath was the first city outside of London to launch theirs. They went live in March, and we are next with ours launching on the 1st of June this year, having been delayed previously from January 2020 due to issues with the government vehicle checker and from summer last year due to COVID-19. Each local authority will set the boundaries and the charging category for their Clean Air Zone. So in Birmingham, we have opted for a Category D Clean Air Zone, which means vehicles that do not meet the emission standards, including private cars, will be subject to the charge. Bath, for example, has chosen a Category C, which means private vehicles are not included. So you may find that you could be subject to the charge in Birmingham and not in Bath, and that's why. Clean Air Zones will be coming to cities including Manchester, Liverpool, Oxford, etc. in the near future. So while it seems like quite a new concept at the moment, they will become commonplace going forward. It's important to note that a Clean Air Zone is not the same as a congestion charge. So in Birmingham, where there's a congestion charge, every single vehicle that drives through a designated area has to pay to do so. In Birmingham, a Clean Air Zone means that it will only be the most high polluting vehicles. And we anticipate that to be about 1 in 4 vehicles. So the Clean Air Zone is the blue area that you can see on screen. It's everywhere within the A4540 Middleway, but not the Middleway itself. So come the 1st of June, if your vehicle is compliant and meets the emission standards, you can drive through the blue air zone, the blue area, the Clean Air Zone, as you do now, without having to pay any charges. So if your vehicle is compliant, you can continue to drive as you would now. If your vehicle is not compliant and is subject to the charges, you can drive around the A4540 Middleway, that's fine. But when you enter the blue area, the clean air zone, you will be subject to that daily charge. So that daily charge is £8 a day for cars, taxis and vans, and £50 a day for HGVs, coaches and buses. A day is midnight to midnight, not 24 hours from when you enter the zone. But during that midnight to midnight time frame, you can enter and leave the zone as many times as you want for a single charge. However, if you were to drive in at say 10 p.m. and leave at 3 a.m, crossing that midnight threshold, you would be subject to 2 charges. You'll be able to pay online or over the phone using the government payment system, and you must pay 6 days prior to the day of your visit, the day of your visit, or 6 days after. So that's a 13-day payment window in total. If you don't pay within those 13 days, you'll be subject to a fixed penalty notice of £120, reduced to £60 if paid within 14 days. Just like London though, you won't receive a text or an email or any kind of alert informing you that you've entered the zone and payment is due. The onus is on you as a driver to know that your vehicle is subject to the charge, to know that you've entered the zone and to make payment within that allocated window. The responsibility sits with the driver. So it's really important that following this meeting today, if you haven't already done so, you check if you're going to be subject to the charge, because that is the only warning you will get, is the boundary signs that are being installed. So there are 300 signs on the approach and boundary of the zone warning that you're entering a chargeable area, but that is the only warning that you will get. The rest of the responsibility sits with the driver. So the big question is, will my vehicle be charged and what are the emission standards? So the easiest thing to do is to go onto the Brumbury's website. From there is a link to the government vehicle checker. You can input your registration details and it will tell you whether or not you're subject to the charge. I'll stress again, if you are not subject to the charge, you do not need to take any action. The emission standards we're looking for on screen are a Euro 4 petrol or better, a Euro 6 diesel or better. This information is in your V5C logbook. A gas Euro 6, fully electric, fully hydrogen fuel cell, or a hybrid electric that meets those Euro 4 petrol or Euro 6 diesel standards. As a guidance and a guidance only, most Euro 4 petrol vehicles came into circulation from 2006 onwards, and most Euro 6 diesel vehicles came into circulation from September 2015 onwards. Like I say though, that is only a guidance. It's the emission standard, not the date that we're looking for. And the easiest thing to do is to go online and use the government vehicle checker. So contrary to media reports, the Clean Air Zone is not intended to be a money-making scheme for the council. If we make no money from the Clean Air Zone, then that's great, because we've achieved our objective, because there will be no high polluting vehicles driving through the zone, and therefore air quality will improve, and that is what this zone is intended to do. However, we do recognise that particularly in the early days, we will make money from this, so we have to reinvest that money in transport related projects and policies. It cannot go to support the council's general budget and fund things such as bin collections or repairs to the floozy and the jacuzzi. So some of the schemes that have been identified to date for investment are implementing controlled parking zones on the boundary of the A4540 Middleway to stop people parking on the outside, causing problems for residents and then walking in. So that scheme is intended to protect residents. We're funding a hydrogen bus pilot scheme for 20 buses that will come into circulation later this year. And we'll be investing money in city centre pedestrianisation works and an enhanced programme of active and sustainable travel, so namely cycle lanes, excuse me. And that in particular is intended to make those short journeys that I referenced earlier of less than a mile safer and more appealing for people to leave their car at home and walk and cycle to their destinations. At this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Peter, who's going to talk through some of the support that's available. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Hi, my name's Peter Edwards, so Principal Clean Air Zone Officer with overall responsibility for delivering the exemptions from the Clean Air Zone, but also working across some of the financial incentive packages that we have on offer. So we'll talk about the exemptions first, as they kind of come first, and then we'll talk about financial incentives, and then finish by kind of talking about how the Clean Air Zone fits in with the wider Birmingham transport plan. So you can see your exemptions here on screen at the moment, and we'll talk through those in a moment. But I think it's important first to kind of put into context where these exemptions and these support packages have come from. They haven't been plucked out of thin air. In 2018, a consultation was conducted around the Clean Air Zone. That consultation was not, shall we do a Clean Air Zone? As Gemma's already said, clean air quality is a public health emergency in this city and nationally, and we've been mandated to do this by the government. The consultation was to identify which groups do we think would be impacted the most, and therefore how should we support them. And off the back of that consultation, which received something like 11,000 responses, a suite, a package, whatever you want to call it, of support has been put together. So that's what I'm going to talk through now. So as you can see on screen, people that live within the Clean Air Zone and drive a non-compliant vehicle, they can access an exemption for up to 2 years. It's important to start that all of the exemptions on screen here, except the hospital visitors, are open for application now on our websites, on the front and centre of the Brumbreeds website. And I'll talk a little bit about how you apply it and the proofs needed and stuff in a moment. People that work in the Clean Air Zone for more than 18 hours a week and earn less than £30,000 a year can apply for a 1-year exemption. And then businesses, organisations that run fleets who are based in the Clean Air Zone, so commercial vehicles, can also access a 1-year exemption. All of these are applied for on our website at the moment. Pretty straightforward process. Create an account at the beginning. You need to indicate whether you're a resident, worker, or a commercial vehicle, and then give us some information about your personal circumstances, your work address, etc. And then the most important bit, we need you to upload some proof documents. So for a resident, that is very simple. You just need to show us a council tax bill and that you are the registered keeper of a non-compliant vehicle. Important to just keep stressing that if you have a compliant vehicle, you don't need an exemption. Please don't apply, because we'll just simply decline you, because when you pass through the cameras will see you as compliant and nothing will happen. So you only need to apply if you're non-compliant. For workers, we will need to see obviously the proof of the vehicle document, which needs to be in your name, and then we need a letter from your employer, HR, etc., stating that Peter Edwards works at Lancaster Circus for 35 hours a week, and then we need to see something that proves that you earn less than £30,000 a year, and these can all be uploaded and will then be processed by my team. It's important to note that until you have been processed and approved by my team, your exemption is not valid and you could be charged. So I really want to stress, especially now as we're getting towards the end of April, the urgency here. So if you, friends, family, colleagues think that you are eligible, you drive a non-compliant vehicle, the time is now to apply. We are seeing increasing numbers of applications and we are working hard. We're recruiting more members of the team to process them. But we know as we get closer to the launch of the zone, we're going to get hit with hundreds, if not thousands of applications. And we're going to try our very best to get everyone processed. But if you apply on the 25th of May, we may not get you processed by the 1st of June, and you may then be liable for charges until you are approved. We will continue to process after the 1st of June. But I really want to stress now, with 5-6 weeks to go, that if you think you're going to need to apply, that now is the time to apply. The only other one to note is if you're a visitor to a designated medical centre within the Clean Air Zone, so that's the Children's Hospital, Bathrow Medical Centre and Badger. These are medical centres, hospitals that offer out of hours or emergency services. Then you will be able to access an exemption via a voucher. So if you drive to that centre or you drop someone off in that centre, they will issue you with a voucher and you can credit that voucher online. So if you drive to a non-compliant vehicle to those centres, then you won't be charged. That will be launched obviously in line with the launch date of the zone. So those are the main, what I call kind of applicable exemptions. On the next slide, please, Gemma, we're just going to look at some more slightly niche or bespoke exemptions, and these are some of these are administered in a slightly different way. So it's important to note that having a blue badge does not grant you an exemption from Clean Air Zone charging. However, if your vehicle has a disabled passenger tax classification, so this is a DVLA classification, it is noted on your V5 logbook. It can be accessed if you're in receipt of certain disability benefits. Then you will have an automatic national exemption from all Clean Air Zones. So worth checking the V5 for that, and there's information on our website about that tax classification. But a blue badge does not give you an exemption from clean air zone charging. Motorcycles are exempt, and then we're looking at more kind of specialist vehicles, so showman's vehicles. These are vehicles that are used for big circuses, events and stuff. These are big specialized vehicles that are very hard to replace or to upgrade. Things like ambulances, fire trucks, gritters, that sort of thing, cranes. They will all be exempt. You've also got historic vehicles. Again, this is a DVLA classification, so these are vehicles over 40 years old. Again, that is automatic. We then have community and school transport. This is not an automatic category. You need to apply for this. So this is your ring and ride services, school buses, etc. with section 19 or 22 permits. They need to apply also. So that covers all the different exemptions available. I think the next slide, please, will show us the financial support packages that are available. So we have secured £35 million worth of funding from central government to support people to upgrade their vehicles and to adapt to the clean air zone. The one probably most relevant to the audience on this call is the Scrappage Scheme and Scrappage and Travel Scheme that we will be launching ahead of the zone going live in May. This is for clean air zone workers, so the eligibility that I described on the previous slide. People who meet that eligibility and have owned their vehicle since September 8, 2018 will be able to apply to us to scrap their vehicle, this non-compliant, higher polluting vehicle. And in exchange for scrapping that vehicle, you will be offered two choices: either £2,000 towards the cost of a newer compliant vehicle. It doesn't have to be a brand new vehicle, doesn't have to be an electric vehicle. It just needs to be a vehicle that meets those compliance standards that Gemma talked about earlier. And that will be done via our partner Motorpoint, who we've recently announced. So a very wide range of vehicles. Or alternatively, you'll be offered £2,000 in the form of travel credit, mobility credit, which will be put on a Swift card for use on the Transport for West Midlands network. So as I say, that scheme will be launched next month. People who are eligible for that scheme have to be eligible for the exemption. So my advice is to apply for your exemption now and then express your interest for the Scrappage Scheme. And as soon as we're ready to launch that, you will get an email from us saying this scheme is now open, please apply. So we can put that in the chat or in a follow-up email with you afterwards, that expression of interest form. Not going to spend too much time on the other ones because they're obviously quite specific, but there is a £10 million pot of funding for people who operate HGVs and coaches within the West Midlands, and there's also a £15 million pot of money for Birmingham licensed hackney carriage and private hire drivers. The taxi grant funding has been incredibly popular. We've already paid out to over 800 drivers and close to £1.3 million has gone out the door. So the clean air zone is already having an impact. Those higher polluting vehicles, which are obviously going in and out of the city centre a lot, have been upgraded because of the upcoming clean air zone. So you can see that the clean air zone is already having an impact before we go live on the 1st of June. So next slide, please, Gemma. So bear with me a second. So we've talked a lot about the clean air zone. We've talked a lot about air quality and what's upcoming, but it's important, I think, to note that the clean air zone is just one element of Birmingham's transport plan, which is seeking to reduce congestion, make Birmingham a cleaner and greener place, and improve the way that we travel. Congestion, air pollution, over-reliance on private motor vehicles has a myriad of negative impacts on our population. Not just air quality, congestion costs the economy billions of pounds a year nationally. And then we also have an obesity crisis in this country and in this city. So we need to change the way that we travel in this city, and we need to get people travelling in a more efficient manner. Private motor vehicles with one person in are not a very efficient way of transporting people, and a more active manner and that will help with the obesity side of things. So the Birmingham Transport Plan was published last year and then kind of superseded with the Emergency Transport Plan in response to COVID. And it has 4 main visions, goals, and those are shown on screen. I'll just run through them quickly. The first one, and perhaps the most important, is to try and reallocate road space away from the private motor vehicle and give more space to people who are walking, cycling and using public transport. So some of these measures have already gone in: cycle lanes, bus priority, things like that. The next one is to try and transform the city centre, and this is kind of the CAZ, the Clean Air Zone area. So improving pedestrianisation, making it easier for kind of cross-city buses, because at the moment it's not easy for a bus to go from the south to the north, and that is a criticism I think that people have of public transport, that everything congregates in the city centre and then you have to change. But that's partly because the bus operators will not go through because of the congestion. And anyone who's tried to cycle across the city centre will tell you that it's not particularly easy. So there's lots of schemes trying to improve access for public transport and people walking and cycling. There's big pedestrianisation going on at the moment as well. The next one is all about prioritising active travel in local neighbourhoods. So everything we've talked about so far has kind of been city centre based, but obviously we need to help people to walk and cycle those shorter journeys that Gemma referenced earlier in their local communities, in the suburbs where they live. So this could be low traffic neighbourhoods which have been introduced across the city, which reduce kind of through traffic, making it safer and more pleasant for people to walk and cycle, but also cycle lanes again, and improving kind of public transport links. And then the final one is trying to manage demand through parking. So there will be no free Birmingham City Council on-street car parking within the Clean Air Zone. Parking permits will be introduced in some areas. Some parking will simply be removed for that reallocation of road space. And as Jim has already talked about, looking at residence parking schemes around the boundary, etc. So there's lots of other stuff going on alongside the Clean Air Zone to try and make Birmingham a cleaner and greener place to live and to travel. I think the next slide, please, is the final slide. And again, this puts it in an even wider context, and we're talking now about the kind of climate emergency here. Birmingham is set as a net zero carbon target for 2030. Clean Air Zone is part of that, just one part of that. I think it's important to note that none of these targets will be achieved just simply by Birmingham City Council working on its own. We need the help of individuals, citizens, communities, businesses, everyone in the city to do their bit. And I think it's also important to note the wider impact and the funding that we've got from the government for the Clean Air Zone is using not just on implementing signs and cameras and paying for myself and Gemma to implement the Clean Air Zone, things like that, but also things like the 20 hydrogen buses Gemma's already mentioned, a massive extension of electric vehicle charging points across the city, and a scheme to purchase up to 50 electric hackney carriages to be introduced into the city and leased out drivers who may not be able to afford, because there is only one fully electric hackney carriage on the market at the moment. So there's an awful lot of money, time and effort going into the wider clean air and transport agenda across the city. So that completes our slides. I hope you found that really helpful. I can see a few questions have popped up. I think it's important to point out our website. So we're going to obviously do Q&A now, but if there's something that you think about after the session, please go to our website. If you can't find the answer on our website, I hope you would be able to, but if you can't, then you email us cleanair@birmingham.gov.uk, and my team, our wider team, monitor that daily. So please email there if we don't cover something, or in the chat sometimes if you ask a very specific inquiry about very specific personal circumstances, I might just ask you to email those across. So bear with me a second while I just load up the questions. I can see quite a few have come through already. I'm just going to have some water. Right, going from the top. Sukhjinder, the car I use for work is in my husband's name and I'm the main driver on the insurance. Well, terms and conditions across all exemptions state that you must be the registered keeper of that vehicle. So if the vehicle was in a partner, husband, wife's name, then you would not be at that point eligible for the exemption. You would need to change the name. unless your husband partner was also eligible, and then you could obviously apply. The exemption is for the vehicle. So if you submit and the name doesn't match, your applicant name doesn't match the vehicle document, then my team would not accept that, and we would ask you for more information. Very good question from Simon here about your car is not compliant. Are all other local authorities going to operate on the same compliance standards? The answer is yes, in terms of the compliance standards of Euro 4, Euro 6. That is the same in London's ULEZ, is the same in Bath. What differs is, as Gemma pointed out, the classification of those. So in Bath, for example, they're not including private cars, they're just doing taxis, HGVs, buses, etc. But the compliance standard is the same across all clean air zones, yes. That's a similar question from Regina as from Sukhjinder about not being named on, not being the registered keeper. You need to be the registered keeper of the vehicle. And then Dino, what support is available to workers who have to travel through the clean air zone to visit clients and may have to do this up to 3 times per week? So the first thing is to check, obviously, if that vehicle you're travelling is non-compliant. If it's compliant, then you won't be charged. If you're based outside of the zone but you're travelling in for work, you would not qualify for the workers exemption. So that's a conversation that you need to have with the trust, with your employer, whether they want to pay that as like a mileage expense. But that is not something, there's not an exemption for that, and that's not something that the Clean Air Zone team can arrange, or sort. That's a decision for your department, your managers, your organisation to make. Good question from Regina. Social work students starting placements in autumn, high number based at Lancaster. So they would, if they wanted the worker exemption, they would need to supply those 3 pieces of evidence that they're the registered keeper, that they work in the clean air zone for at least 18 hours a week. It's not clear from that whether they would or if they would just be going in every now and again. And then with regards to their income, I've had similar circumstances where someone's getting a bursary. We would just need to see proof of that bursary. They're not a volunteer. So yeah, that one probably best to try, and if there's up to 50 of them, we could try and administer that as a block. So maybe best if you email us by Clean Air or by Lawrence, who's organised today. I think that's one that we'd need to look at as a block, because obviously we wouldn't want to have to ask somebody to provide 50 letters. So we could perhaps look at that as a block, but they would need to meet the same criteria as everyone else for the workers, but it sounds like that could potentially be done. Is the scrappage scheme only open to those who are eligible for an exemption? Well, the scrappage scheme has slightly more restrictive terms than the exemption. So if you're not eligible for the exemption, you wouldn't be eligible for the scrappage scheme. So the more restrictive condition is that you need to have owned the vehicle from 10th of September 2018. That date is the date that the Clean Air Zone was ratified. It went through council, through full cabinet, etc. So if you weren't eligible for the exemption, you wouldn't be eligible for the scrappage scheme. £30,000 before or after tax. So you can't earn more than 30,000. It's £30,000 or more. So whatever your pay slip, your salary, your pay slip, or your P60 says. Anjum Goal, can we apply for an exemption if my hub is outside the clean? No. If your base location is outside the clean air zone, it's similar to the question earlier. You're based in, I don't know, anywhere outside the zone, but you then maybe have to go and do visits into the clean air zone. That wouldn't qualify for a clean air zone workers exemption, because you have to be based in the zone for an 18 hours. You have to have a letter saying that Peter Edwards is based in the zone. So your letter would not say that because you're outside the zone travelling in. That's another same question really at 1024. A scheme for people who work for the council or trust to obtain bikes. So we have the Cycle to Work scheme, which is a salary sacrifice scheme where you can buy a bike through your salary. My understanding is that the limit used to be £1,000, but they've increased that recently so that you can access electric bikes potentially, because electric bikes are quite expensive, not in relation to a car, but over £1,000 for an electric bike. So the Cycle to Work scheme is there to support people to obtain bikes. How is this information being given to the wider population? Well, me and Gemma spend large parts of our working week delivering presentations like this to every different type of audience across the city. We have promotional banners, radio campaigns. There is an awful lot of time and money going into the promotion of the Clean Air Zone, because I think, as Gemma already said, we don't want on the 1st of June for lots of people to get charged because they didn't know it was happening. So an awful, oh, I can see that Gemma's already answered that, so I won't go into any more detail. What's available for workers who can't get an exemption? Well, the exemptions and the support packages are as described. So in short, there isn't particularly other support available. So if you're a non-compliant vehicle and you would be charged, sorry, I've got notifications popping up. There is no other support from the Clean Air Zone team. That's not to say that the Children's Trust couldn't support you in other ways in terms of support with access to public transport. I know that we've been looking at a salary sacrifice scheme for cars as well as bikes. So that may be a way of accessing a compliant vehicle through a lease scheme. So there is other forms available. Is there an app you can make payment on? Generally, they're not making an app, are they? So the payment is all managed by central government, and as far as I'm aware, it's done by the .gov.uk web pages or over the phone. I don't think there is an app. Is that right, Gemma? That's correct. There's no app at the moment. That's not to say that won't come forward in the future, but at the moment, no, there is no app. That's a replicated question. There's one here from Alex. It says, are you able to comment on whether the Birmingham's Children's Trust, and then it seems to have got cut off, so I can't really answer that. I don't understand your question, Alex. Stockdale at 1029. If you want to maybe put that in again, I'm not sure I understand. Is there a car lease scheme, hire scheme that the council are supporting? Yes, it was certainly on the table pre-COVID. I think it's been delayed due to COVID. I think they were at a point of nearly appointing someone. I did ask a HR contact not long ago. I think we just need to get an update on that one. Yeah, just to come in, Peter, couple of points here. I think what Alex is asking, and I might be wrong in this kind of assumption, is he's saying when he checks his vehicle, it states an exception is Birmingham City Council. I think he's alluding to the fact is, does that equate to the trust as well when the exception is Birmingham City Council, kind of in terms of organisation, when he's seeing that wording? I think I think what you're seeing is on the vehicle checker at the final page when it tells you you're charged or not charged, it says Birmingham City Council or Bath and North East Somerset Council purely because they are we are the owning authority of the local of the clean air zones. That's because on the final page of the vehicle checker it tells you about the zones. So there's no exemptions that are Birmingham City Council specific. So that's just a link to say that Birmingham City Council is the owner of the local authority. So if you earn over £30,000, you're not eligible for the worker exemption, and you would need to pay the daily charge or change the way that you travel or change your vehicle.
Perfect. That makes sense, Peter. I think that's kind of is people seeing that the text Birmingham City Council, and they're kind of wondering what's the context of that. So I think you've explained that very clearly.
Yeah, I'm just going to run it through my vehicle registration just
whilst you're doing that. Yeah, I mean in terms of the car lease scheme,
yeah,
that is in its kind of final negotiations. That is for kind of trust staff in terms of what's going on. So there will be some announcements coming up shortly with regards to the car lease scheme. So that is very much in the forefront of kind of what's going on, at the moment. So yes, that is coming very soon.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lawrence, because I had been chasing some updates on that, so that's good to hear. So yeah, I've just been through the vehicle checker, and you get to the final page and it says Birmingham charge, no charge, and then it says exemptions Birmingham City Council. If you click the link, it's just taking you to our website, and if you click the Bath, it would take you to their website. So there's no Birmingham City Council specific, there's nothing excluding Children's Trust, it's just taking you to the Birmingham City Council website essentially. So hopefully we've cleared that one up. So there's kind of another similar question. If you don't meet the exemption criteria, then there are no further support packages available from us to support the transition into the clean air zone. Does Newtown come under the clean air zone? The map, we can put the map in the chat. I think a small part of Newtown comes in, yes. It's all roads within the A4540 Middle Ring Road. So I think the Ring Road cuts just most of Newtown off, but I think a small part is. But if we put in the chat, or if we put afterwards, you can check for yourself if there's a specific postcode or area. Yeah, so Gemma's already asked the question about the scrappage scheme. So if you scrap your vehicle, that will be organised by Motorpoint. They'll take the vehicle away, get it scrapped for you. They will supply you with a certificate of destruction that vehicle is no longer on the road, and then they will take £2,000 off the forecourt price. No money will ever be put in your bank account. Same with the mobility credit, it will be put into your travel Swift account and then drawn down, and you can do with it what you will. And it's important to note on the mobility credit that you can also add multiple cards. So if you wanted to have a partner, friend, family, they could also draw down from your £2,000 worth of mobility credit. Kathleen, will volunteers for the trust be exempt? No, there are no exemptions for volunteers. We've got another question about lease cars, so I think we've talked about that. Michelle Ravenscroft, no, you have to be, the scrappage scheme will be administered by Motorpoint, and you'll have, so the way that it will work is that you will apply to us. Our team will assess your documentation, and then we will kind of approve you. We will hand you to Motorpoint. Motorpoint will contact you, and they will organise the scrappage of your vehicle, and then they will organise you going to them to buy your new vehicle. Or they will scrap the vehicle and then hand you back to us to put the £2,000 into your Swift account. Gemma's answering the question at 10:38 about why you're being charged in Bath and not in Birmingham, because as Gemma explained, Bath is not charging private motor vehicles, so the compliance standard is the same, but the classification of the clean air zone is not the same. So they are doing a class C where they don't do private cars, they only do taxis and HGVs, but we are doing all vehicles. But the compliance standard, the Euro 4 or the Euro 6, is the same across all. Gemma has put a map of the zone into the chat for the person who was asking about Newtown. Will Birmingham be looking at a congestion charge at some point? It's not on the agenda. I think the clean air zone is on the agenda and is the priority. I haven't heard anything about a congestion charge. London obviously has both, so you're doubly charged if you drive a non-compliant vehicle into London. It's not something that I've heard anything about. Can I sell my car, apply for £2,000? No, you can't sell the car. It has to be scrapped. That's the whole idea of the scheme, is that that vehicle is off the road, because then that higher polluting vehicle will not be on the road. So obviously, if your non-compliant vehicle is worth £5,000, the scrappage scheme is not necessarily going to be the way for you to change your vehicle. But the vehicle must be scrapped. Nobody will get anything until there's a certificate of destruction from the scrappage yard. Okay, I think 33 questions, which is pretty good going.
I think we've done very well there, Peter and Gemma. So fantastic set of responses there. Can I just allow people one final minute? So if you're still here and with us, and we've still got 57 attendees on this webinar at the moment, if you have any other questions, please type them into the Q&A, and we've still got a few minutes to answer those. But I think we've covered quite a lot of topics, and as Peter's stated, we've had a few repeat questions, just written slightly different angles. So I think we're getting there. Oh, we've got one more here. I shall just see if we've got that. I think we've got that.
It's from Alex about if you earn over £30,000, the scrappage scheme is not an option. No, it is not, nor is the exemption. If you earn over £30,000, you're not eligible for the exemption or the scrappage scheme. I think there's one further one. But it hasn't. How do I publish it, Gemma? There's one at 10:42 that needs publishing.
Trying to figure that out as well.
Yeah, normally it's very easy to publish it, but anyway, I can see the question without publishing it. Yeah, so the issue around staff travelling within the trust and for the trust has arisen again. There's not a great deal further I can add on that. That is something that the trust needs to address with their staff. If you're being asked to use your private motor vehicle to travel in and out of the clean air zone and that will incur a charge, then that's we as the clean air zone team, and me, Gemma, and the rest of our team, we're here to implement the clean air zone and to deliver this sort of engagement work and all the other work that's going on. We're not in a position to influence how other parts of Birmingham City Council or the Children's Trust or any employer in the city then reacts and supports their staff through that. We've got another one at 10:43. If I buy a second-hand car in my name, will I be eligible for the £2,000 exemptions? There's two different things we're talking about here. There's an exemption which has no monetary value, so it gives you a 1-year grace period from not paying the charge. So a non-compliant car, let's describe it and how it's going to work. You drive a non-compliant car into the zone and the camera will pick it up and the camera will say, that's a non-compliant car. you need to be charged. The camera will then check against what we are creating, which is called a whitelist, an exemptions whitelist that we are creating, and it will say, oh, actually that car is on the exemption list, so no charge, nothing will happen for 1 year. The £2,000 scrappage scheme is separate to that and will enable you to buy, will help you towards buying a compliance car. Once you have a compliant car, you don't need an exemption. So if you go out and buy a second-hand car, you won't get £2,000 from us because you need to scrap your car. There's a question about a specific registration plate there, and then I'm not in a position to answer that, Alex, in terms of the trust reimbursing staff. That's something that the trust.
Alex, just to say, all of these questions are going to be downloaded. So with doing the live event, we can download all of our questions onto a convenient little spreadsheet, and I'll make sure that they get shared with the likes of the exec team and the head of HR. So all of these questions, some of them we can't answer immediately, but we'll make sure that they all get recorded and shared with senior colleagues. So in terms of answering that question, I can't answer that straight away. I'm not kind of privileged to be able to do that, but we'll certainly be putting all of these questions through to people, especially those that are in other meetings and have been unable to attend today.
Lawrence, there's a question about the cycle to work scheme. Now, I know Birmingham City Council has it, and I'd be surprised if the Children's Trust doesn't have it, and I'm never entirely sure about how the relationship between the two organisations work. So I don't want to put a link to the Birmingham City Council intranet page. So would you be able to either put
Absolutely. If that's one of the questions that's been recorded in text, we will anything that we haven't been able to answer, or Gemma or Peter, you haven't answered because it's a direct question to the trust and not to the Clean Air Zone, we will get answers and we'll publish those on the intranet. So anything that hasn't been answered, we will do so pretty shortly, hopefully by Friday. Anything that isn't answered, we'll publish in comms on Friday.
But Tina, if you go on usually it's in the HR or the staff benefit type pages. It certainly is in every employer that I've ever worked for. You can usually find it, but it sounds like Lawrence is gonna.
I'm just gonna have a quick look to see if we've got anything on the intranet at the moment.
Is the Clean Air Zone permanent? Gemma's replying. I think the funding is a five-year project. But if it doesn't work and the air quality doesn't improve, then it may stay. But the idea is that after however many years of the zoning being in place, is that the air quality is improved to such a standard that it's not required. So it may not be permanent in the purest sense of the word, but it's certainly not going anywhere soon.
Yeah, just to confirm, the cycle to work scheme is the council one that trust staff can apply for. I've just had a look on our trust intranet, and it directs you through via People Solutions back out the other end to the City Council's intranet content on the cycle scheme. So anyone, if you just type cycle to work scheme in the trust intranet, it will take you to a salary sacrifice page, and then there's a clear button on there with the cycle to work scheme on it. So you just click on there, take you to People Solutions. It will then say go to the intranet on the City Council, and that has all the details on it. So it's a simple search away from getting to that information.
And from a personal perspective, I can't recommend the cycle scheme highly enough. So many years ago, working for Manchester City Council, sold my car, couldn't afford it, bought a bike quite reluctantly, but the bike the charges. They take the payment before tax, so you make a tax saving. You obviously also spread the cost of the bike, so you pay through your salary pre-tax, so yeah, but you're also paying in installments essentially, and you can also buy all your accessories, your lights, your locks, your helmet. You can even buy like your high-vis jacket and stuff. So I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a really fantastic scheme, and now they've extended it further. So if you wanted to get an electric bike or a cargo bike, a kind of specialist bike, then the option is now there. So yeah, it's a brilliant scheme, and cycling in Birmingham is getting. We're a long way from being Amsterdam or Copenhagen or Paris or even London for that matter, but we're getting there. It's getting better, and there is support out there to improve if cycle training and route planning and confidence, and cycle lanes are coming. So and now's the time to take it up at the beginning of this, at the beginning of spring, summer. Not many people start cycling to work in November, December, only the mad amongst us like myself. Yeah, so I can highly recommend that just from a personal perspective. And
Gemma, are you all right to just get that link from the council intranet? Unfortunately, I'm unable to paste. I can go to the link, I can find it, I can copy it, but it's not letting me paste into the Q&A. So if either of you can just paste that link through, that would be great.
On it.
Yeah, I can do that now. I do understand that there's going to be an announcement about the car lease scheme and etc. as well coming out this week, just to add on to that.
There's the link to the intranet page for salary sacrifice bikes, cycle to work scheme.
Perfect.
I don't think there's any more questions come in while we were having that discussion. So from myself and Gemma, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting us. I hope you found it very useful. It's always good when we get lots of questions. It's never particularly when you spend 20 minutes presenting and then nobody says anything with these kind of live formats. So thank you for being very engaged. And Lawrence, thanks for inviting us. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. On behalf of everyone at the Trust, Peter and Gemma, I just want to say thank you very, very much. We obviously encourage people to go onto the Brumbreathes website to make sure you get all the relevant and most up-to-date information there. Obviously, to check your vehicle with your registration number on it, and get all the latest information. And you know, you're doing a lot. I know. I've put in the chat. I listen to digital radio, and there I am listening to Talk Sport yesterday, and the Brumbreathes advert popped up multiple times. So you know, it's really good to kind of to know that's working really well and effectively in terms of the communication. So yeah, it's a case that, you know, look out, but it is, as you said earlier, the responsibility of individuals to understand how this works and do your own checking of your vehicle. So we just encourage, from a trust perspective, we want you to make sure that you don't make any assumptions, don't take anything for granted. Make sure that you do go on the website and you do the check. Would that be kind of a good summary, Peter?
That's usually how we would summarise and finish off. So yeah, I think that was pretty perfect. So yeah, I'm not sure there's a great deal else to add. There's not much time to go. Get ready, apply for anything you may be eligible. And the other thing is just to go back to the, well, we're not in the office perhaps, or maybe you are. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell your family. We have a number of webinars that me and Gemma deliver, well, or we all deliver, that are recorded on our website, specifically to people who work or live in the zone. So they're all recorded. So even if you may not have time to join in live, you can, and we use pretty much similar presentations and we have similar questions. So I would highly recommend that. That's all hosted on the Brumbreathes website as well. I think that covers it. And it might be just, I know there's just somebody saying thank you, which is always nice. Thanks, Ajinda.
Cool. Okay, we're done now. So thanks everybody for coming along this morning. Much appreciated. Cheers.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.